Should have something. All right. Yeah, you can go ahead and start recording. All right, everybody. Welcome to our Creator Office Hours. And today our subject is Blender geometry nodes. And because tis the season, uh, we're going to attempt to do a Christmas tree. I have sent something out. It should be I think in the creator chat. If you look in there, there's a Blender file. So if you want to download that Blender file, it already has a Christmas tree done, and it's got, also just a trunk started, so you could play around with that if you wanted to. But if you can, use the poll. Let me know where you are with your Blender skills. I'm probably somewhere between B and C myself. I'll mark C. But yeah, I'm not awesome with it. I've done a lot of Blender stuff where it's procedural, and I've done that mostly in the material workflow where, maybe you're doing something like a house and you're doing a floor and you want to make that floor look like wood, and you don't want to pay for, a nice image texture, so you just kind of fake it using, a procedural method. That's kind of the stuff that I've done. Again, and done it a lot, whether it's skin texture or wood textures or whatever. And so those skills do lend themselves to geometry nodes. So we're going to kind of go over it, and I'll explain a little bit about what it is. So since 0 is actually 1, it looks like I only have 3 people who've answered the question. So let's see. Electric Yoshi Christmas tree file. Okay, you added the file that I uploaded there. Thanks. And you guys can feel free to be off mute. It's good. We can be conversational. There's not like a ton of people here. So, what about just overall Blender skills or interest? Where is this crew on this? Tuan, I know you're new to Blender, but you have curiosity. Electric Yossi is typing. I'll give you guys, after I kind of get a sense of where people are, I'll give some thoughts. So, bite and profundity. What do you guys think? Where are you in Blender and or geometry nodes? Or are you just hanging because you got nothing else to do? You're an advanced donut expert. Very good. I've only done the coffee cup in that tutorial. I'm always fascinated with how people do glass and liquid, so I wanted to go through that. So that's definitely an awesome tutorial. Everybody should do it, even if you're skilled in Blender. Highly recommend the donut tutorial because it goes over the whole interface. It goes over so many different things, modeling, materials, lighting. So okay. All right, Jay from A, welcome. All right, so we're going to be talking about Blender and geometry nodes. And so my screen should be sharing. So I'm going to show you guys some example of geometry nodes. And geometry nodes, just from its basic, it's using a procedural method in order to create things in Blender. So that could be, it could create the geometry, it could create the textures, it could create the lighting, just different things that you would do in Blender, including animation, could be done procedurally through geometry nodes. So this here is something called, it's a new node that's in Blender 3.4, and this is called shortest path. And if you guys have followed some things on mathematics, calculating the shortest path across an object can be tricky. And so there's an actual node to do it. So it will essentially can be used to direct a line or particles or something across an object as you were seeing there. So something like lightning could potentially be done with shortest path. This is an example of a scene that was done with geometry nodes. In fact, I think this whole scene was done with geometry nodes. The tree, all the lightning, all the effects, all the animation was done with geometry nodes. How the grass was done, how the grass moves, etc. So it's a really good example of how you can push geometry nodes to do different things. And essentially, it's using a node tree. So if you're familiar with Unreal Engine or Unity or Houdini, a lot of that workflow is node based. It's where you pipe in, plug, and connect different attributes and values into a particular function. So it's a visual sort of programming. This kind of thing here is pretty popular, which is city building. So this could be used for game development if you wanted to. You may just want to create the foundation for how do you create a city, and then adjust the nodes and the node values and organically get a city that you'd like. So it can be quite powerful. Um, Generating terrains and landscapes. So this scene here is also done in nodes, and this is actually probably one of the easier things to do. It's really just a plane with enough geometry in it, and all you're doing is you're displacing or changing. So let's say the z value on any point in the mesh, to some height. And you can go on Google Maps and you can get the satellite information, the photography of certain areas, and you can also get the topography, and you can use that as a value. And you essentially, I've done this where you take Yosemite and you're able to get Half Dome and everything else just by displacing it. So you can also displace materials, but you can also do it here in geometry nodes. The difference with displacing in materials versus in geometry nodes supports both Eevee and cycles. So it's a node-based system that will work on both render engines. So it can be quite handy. And you can just programmatically plug values into it as well. So do things like dancing cloud stickmen. So different fun things that you can do. And Sean, I'm sorry, and Tuan is recording this session. Right, Tuan? You can thumbs up if you don't want to talk. All right. So that's geometry nodes. Any questions before? There we go. Thumbs up. We are recording. Any other questions about geometry nodes? Curiosities? Things you want to see or know before I dive into showing you something? Okay, I can go ahead. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to jump over to Blender here. And so that file's available. You can open this file up, and what you should see is you should have finished tree, and you should have trunk in there. So trunk should look like this. And this is the basics of what I'm going to show you guys, because the entire tree is basically this. If you know how to do this, then you can do this. It's really simple. And then what you can do is in the value geometry nodes is being able to adjust these parameters. So, I can adjust the tree height, make it taller or shorter. I can adjust the width of the tree. I can adjust the noise in particular directions. I can adjust how likely the branches are going to fall in the tree, so I can reduce this down. We can have a Charlie Brown Christmas tree here. Well, that's not quite Charlie Brown. There we go. That's a bit more Charlie Brown. So you can, adjust these parameters, and that's the cool thing about geometry nodes is as you're dealing with values in this node-based system, you can store those as attributes that you can then change. Leaf size, leaf density, twig density, all that kind of stuff. So that's all information that I've put into the node system. But and then that will give you a Christmas tree. But like I said, the basics is this. If you know how to create this, and really the rest of it is really just repeating this process. That's why you're going to see this node structure just looks familiar with each set here because you're just repeating the same process over and over on there. Since I've got this open here, I wonder if I can do this way. Hold on, let me try this. Just so I can see. That's why your tree looked like an old graphics card. All right. Okay. So, and then there's some other cool things that you can do with nodes as well. So here's something that I did. You don't have this on your version of it, but I can show you how to create it if you're interested in it. So I'm going to go over to Bezier curve. I'm going to hit tab in order to edit. Zoom out here a little bit. All right. So you see, I just drew this. And it did a tree. So and there we go. Get tree stuff all over the place. So this is another technique that people are using with nodes is where if you just kind of want to draw stuff in, you can just do that. Is you build the logic for building that tree or that object, and then you can use things like grease pencil here and just draw them in there. So we can do that kind of thing as well. So trunk. All right, let me just go to finish tree here. Get out of tab key is a quick way to go in and out of edit mode. So what I'm going to do is show you a little bit about the node structure here. Yeah, it's going to be better if I just do this. I'm going to set my phone up so that I can see the discussion here from my phone rather than taking part of my screen real estate. Okay, cool. All right, that totally worked. All right. A fork tree. Yeah. We can try to do a fork tree. I don't know. Maybe. It might be too dangerous. We may be pushing the fork to its limits if we do that. Okay, so when you're doing geometry nodes, just like anything else, you're going to be in the right layout. So there is a geometry nodes layout here. So usually it's the other way around where up top you have your viewport and then down below you have your nodes. I just kind of rearrange this here. I think for me, for this specific demo, it's easier, especially because we're stacking up nodes here. This is going to be a little bit easier for you guys to see here. But let me turn off the tree, and I'm going to go over here to trunk group and select it. And by selecting it, it's just showing the nodes here. And what you'll see here on nodes, let me do a new one. Okay, we're going to do it differently then. Okay, you're going to go away. All right. Yeah. This is what you will see when you first start with geometry nodes. So you'll probably have some object that you're starting with. And we're not going to use this cube here. So, but it's just, you have to assign the node to some asset. So I added in a cube. in order to assign that asset. So, but if I unplug this here, if you hold Control and do right click, it creates this little slice, and boom, these things get disconnected. If I reconnect it, then the cube shows back up. But what this is basically saying is I'm going to take this input here, which is this geometry, and I'm going to output it over here. And then this is what gets viewed. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some different nodes in between here in order to create the tree. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to add in a line curve, right? So I'm going to type in line, curve line, and here we go, just like this. And I'm going to disconnect this and plug this in here. So there's our line curve. And I'm going to say direction length, I'm going to say 5 meters, all right? So something like that. Zoom out a little bit. Make sure that I can view it here. So now that's going to be the basis for a trunk or this object that we're creating. So if you want to create anything that was based on a curve or a line, this is where you would start. But as we know, something like a tree or anything that's organic isn't just a straight line like this. It's going to have some kind of random twists and turns in it. So we want to add noise to this line. But right now we only have 2 points on this line. We've got a point here and a point there. So what I need to do is I need to add additional points in there. And that's called resample. So I'm going to resample this curve here. And then I can, right now it's add in 10. I'm going to say 30. We're going to add in 30 points across this curve here. Now, if I take this variable here that I'm changing and I just bring it down over to the input, what it does is it automatically says, oh, I'm going to use an input value for this. And then over here, now this number shows up. So when you want to have controls on this and adjust these things up and down, that's what you do. You take that variable and you'd add it into the input. And now it's a variable that you can control. All right, so what we're going to do in order to create that kind of variability and curviness in it, we're going to just add in a noise texture. All right, and then we're going to use this to set the position. So each one of these points has an X, Y, and Z value in 3-dimensional space. So we're just going to mess with those values in order to get this thing to be a little bit curvy. So we're going to set the position of that. So I'm going to plug this in here and I'm going to offset that position. So if I take this and I plug it in here, you'll see that it offset this by some factor, right? A noisy factor, right? So if I increase the scale of this, it's going to increase or decrease that noisiness. If I go down to almost to 0, you'll see that it starts to get way less noisy, right? So I could have something like that. And then the more detail or resolution I put in this, the more that these curves are going to show up. So that's why we resampled the curve and we added essentially geometry into this, and now we're moving all that geometry. But the problem with this is it just moved everything off. So if I look straight down at this, it just moved everything over in this direction, right? And no matter what I do, that's kind of happening. It's tending to move, in the upper right. And that's because it's moving the X and the Y positions together. So really what you need to do is first, I need to recenter this. So I need to remap everything that I offset so that it's offsetting in a positive direction and in a negative direction. So things stay centered there. So I'm going to remap this. Or maybe it's called map. Map range, there it is. There you go. So I'm going to do a map range here. And right now what it's doing, it's taking these values here. So the value of the noise information is either white or black. and it's some number between white and black. And so that is usually, in the way things work within Blender, is some value between 0 and 1. So it's going to have that 0 to 1 value, and I'm going to remap that from -1 to +1. So what that does now is it centers this where we wanted it. And I see I had my cube floating in space. Hold on. There it is. So now it's at our origin here, and any of that noise is happening off of that center. It's either moving in a negative direction or a positive direction on the X, Y, and Z axis, right? But I want it to be different for the X versus the Y. Otherwise, they're going to be exactly the same, and it's always going to push everything off at an angle like this, right? So far, this making sense, folks? And again, what we're trying to get to is this kind of thing. This is what we're going to get to, where we've got three-dimensional geometry based upon information that we're using in nodes here. All right, well, we'll just keep going then. All right, so what I'm going to do is this offset here is actually an X, Y, and Z number, and I want to put in numbers for the X and Y coordinates, and I'm going to leave Z alone. So in Blender, Z is up and down, and X and Y is more like how if you looked at it from a two-dimensional plane, left and right. All right. Well, I guess up and down on a paper perspective. So let me go ahead and get an XYZ combine here. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that in here. So if I do this off of the X, then it's just doing it in the X direction. And we can see that arrow go off here. Yeah, so it's just here off of the X plane. It's moving it up and down. And now I want to do something very similar. So I'm going to copy these and paste them. Control C, Control V. Boom. And I'm going to adjust the scale just ever so slightly. So let me make this one 2. And this one 1.4. Okay, so now we can see, especially if I go up top here, it's moving all around, right? So this is one way to do this. And I've seen a lot of tutorials do it this way, where you just maybe change the scale slightly different. I think it's a little bit cooler if we could just change the noise seed. So the seed is usually that randomness or that pattern of that noise. And one way that you can do that is the noise texture, you change it to 4D rather than to 3D. And I'm going to set my scale both to 1.25. So they'll be identical. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this W, which is really, it's like the seed of this. So if I shift this a bit, then we can see it's really shifting in another direction because the seed is completely different. That randomness is starting at a different place, right? All right, so now I have my X and I have my Y noise, but I want to tone these down just a bit because it's probably a little too crazy for what it is. And the other thing I want to do is generally a trees will at the bottom.
Something?
Hello, who is this? Okay, I thought I heard another voice.
No.
No, I did hear another voice. Okay. Anyways, so usually the randomness will be smaller at the bottom and wider at the top. And if I go over here to my tree trunk here, that's kind of how we see it at the bottom. It's not so much, but as we go get up higher, it starts becoming a little bit more random. So who am I hearing through here?
Do you want ice cream, Jonah?
Oh, it's Bryce. Hey, Bryce.
Give me that.
Can I mute Bryce? There we go. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we want to do that. So the other thing that we want to do is provide some sort of parameter that kind of clamps it down when we're on the lower end of the tree trunk, and then allows it to go a little bit more crazy as it gets towards the end.
Nora, you want to eat an ice cream?
So
Vanilla
what
ice
I'm
cream
gonna
for
do here
Jonah.
is
No, baby, that's not good for
one thing here.
doggy.
I'm just gonna
That's for
test a
doggy.
couple things here.
Woo!
Yeah, that's pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a another variable here that I'm going to call scale. I'm just going to plug it into each one of these guys. And if you type N, this little side menu comes up, right? And so this is the group information. And I can go in if I want to say this. This is noise scale.
Oh, the marker?
Yep. Let's go like that. And then now it's a number here. So I can adjust this for both of them and get this kind of where I want it to go. You know, something maybe like that, right? And then again, if I adjust the kind of this count here, which I'm going to change this to detail or resolution of the tree. So if I bring this down, see, it's got less geometry to work with, and the more I bring it up, the more geometry it has to work with. Right, so we're going to want to clamp this thing down so that it's less noisy at the bottom and more noisy at the top. All right, get rid of this. Move this a little bit further over here. Zoom in so we can see this. So we need to get a parameter about this this spline here, about this line. So I'm going to capture an attribute from my curve based upon the spline parameter. All right. All right. So I've captured an attribute based upon the spline parameter. All right. And then we're going to multiply this by this. I think that's how this is going to work. So let's go ahead and let's add in a math node. All right. And I can set, what I can do is say this number here by this number here. And then we're going to go like that. I'm going to get rid of this for now, just so that we can see it on one variable. And I think that worked. Yeah, it seems to be going more crazy off the X direction. So let's just see if this works the other way. All right, let's see, I'm doing something wrong here. I think I need another map range node in here. I'm pretty sure that's what I need. I'm going to look at my trunk that I did just to cheat. All right, plugged in before this, not after it, is what I did. Okay, so we captured the attribute, we created a range, and then we multiplied it in, and then it went out. So the difference is the order of operation. All right, so there we go. I was close. All right, let's go back to our cube. All righty. Cube, there it is. No, it's this guy. Oh, cube one on mine. There it is. All right, here we are. Give myself a little bit more room because I'm going to be doing this over on this side. Is this like watching paint dry, guys? You let me know if this is interesting, or if anybody's learning, and if anybody's following along. I'd love to know. Like, are you trying to do this at the same time? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to get a math range node here. We're going to plug our attribute into the value. Then we're going to multiply it. So this was right. All right, there we go. No, I'm not sure about that. So this should go, oh, okay, yeah. To maximum, and minimum would be this times -1. That way, again, we get that it's going from the negative of the number to the positive of the number. So something like that. You guys can see that this stuff can quickly look really messy, right? You can look up, like, if you want to look up like Unreal Engine blueprints, right? Just look up and look at the images and just see what those things look like. This is kind of things just start to get pretty hairy. There are ways that you can move these lines around a whole lot easier. You can use like right click, shift, right? So if you wanted to do something like this, now you have a node and you can start, oops, let me just grab that guy. You can move things like this so that you can start, directing these things a little bit more cleanly. So yeah, that's how that should work. Alrighty. So that goes in the max minimum there, and then I should do the same thing here. So this should go to max, this should go to minimum, and then we end up like that. That does not look right. -1 goes to minimum, goes to max, goes to value. Is this 0? Should be like that. All right, let's go look at our trunk. Got to cheat again. I'm going to arrange these guys so that they're more coordinated. This guy on top of this guy, this here, my multiplies together, that. And then this map range here, these guys out here like that, because that's the order. Alrighty. Any questions from the peanut gallery out there? Is anybody following along? I mean, in terms of anybody trying this? If you have something working, give me a screenshot. Okay. right, this looks pretty much like what I did, but it's not working. So I'm going to copy this and see what happened. Doesn't let me paste across. Oh, I see what happened. I pasted it over there. All right. So we're going to compare these. Somebody finds the difference, you tell me. All right. Got. Oh, I forgot about this. That is essentially this. All right. So we're going from capture to value in a map range node. This is going out to a multiply times a -1. That is then going into the minimum of both of those. This is going into the, oh, that's why. Okay, that was it. I connected it here rather than here. Otherwise, I think I had it right. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so all of that convoluted process in order so that you can have a tree trunk that we're drawing, at least as a line, where it gets a little bit crazier and wavier up top, right? And so far we can adjust the detail of this. We can adjust the noise scale of this. See, like, that's kind of funky. So if we add in detail, yeah, that kind of starts to smooth out. Okay. And the other thing I think we should do is how big our tree is. How tall do we want that? And that's this right here. That's the length. So I'm going to drag this guy and bring it into the group input. And that way we can adjust this bigger, smaller, that kind of thing. There you go. Cool. There's some other things we can do. I'm going to look at the trunk. I'm not going to do them here. I don't think I did them. No. Okay. No, I didn't do it there. I did it over here. I'll talk about that when we get to this part. But this is getting to adding the geometry to it. And you can create a curve to define a little bit of how that geometry works. So it's not so linear and it's a little bit more organic. So we'll get into that. Okay. All right. So we now have this tree trunk that we're going to use. And this is essentially the basis for us building out the geometry for the tree. So what I'm going to do is this is all kind of one process, one flow. Let's see, we've got the geometry that we're setting up here, or the variables that we're setting up here. We've got a curved line, and then we've added resolution to the line, and then we're creating the randomness. And then it's going out to the group. So this whole bit right here, I'm going to do that and do Control J. That's just going to box it. Really what this is just to say I'm organizing all this stuff together because this is what gives it that noise, right? The next stuff that we're going to do is add the geometry to it. So what we want to do is when you add in a curve to mesh. No, I want curve to mesh. There it is. There. So curve to mesh will take this curve here and it'll use it as a path for some geometry. And when we do that, we have to define what shape or profile do we want in order to create this thing. So a tree is round generally. So in terms of its shape from the trunk going on up. So we're going to just use something as simple as a circle. So we're going to do curve circle, just like that. Or we're going to add as the profile, right? So there it is. It's a mess. It looks horrible. So what we want to do is we want to be able to set the radius of this. So I'm going to set curve radius, add that in front of this, and adjust this to something I think makes sense. All right, and then that's also a parameter that I want to add into this group thing here. So I'm just going to copy this group. Nope. Copy this group node. This can be really anywhere. And I'm going to take this radius and I'm going to put it in there. And we are going to call that one, type the N key to bring up the menu here. We can call that trunk width. Okay, so this is trunk width, and I can set that to whatever I want. But we notice we have the same problem with this trunk width as we have with the waviness, is we don't want it to be consistent all the way through. We want it to be fatter at the bottom and skinnier at top. It's kind of the opposite of what we were doing with that noise. We wanted less noise at the bottom and more noise at top. So essentially, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take this thing here, copy it. So this is what allowed us. Shoot, I already did that. All right, I'll just do it this way then. Add in capture attribute. Add in the spline parameter. Boom. And we're going to put that in front of this radius. So it's going to change the radius based upon this information. Fact, it goes into the value, the geometry goes here, and then the geometry goes out like that. And then the attribute is going to go I may be doing this differently than I did the other one. Let me. Yeah, there we go. All right. So what we've done here is I've got a trunk width that I can set how big it is. I'm capturing the attribute of the spline, and then I'm multiplying by it. But what we see here is it's going in the wrong direction. We want it fatter at the bottom, thicker at top. So we can use that map range thing again. And plug it in here. And right now it says 0 to 1. If I reverse these, should reverse that direction. Should I? Okay. Yeah, but it's not doing it all across. Let me try another way. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's doing the same thing. Okay. Press. Not like that. Width's not working the way I want it to. All right, let's go back to my tree trunk here. What did I do differently? All right, capture the attribute. That one, the curve attribute was just set radius. Oh, I didn't even have a multiply. That's the difference. Okay, I just used curve radius here. So really what it would have looked like is more like this. Okay. Yeah, that's the other way to do it. I was told you guys that's what I was going to do. So let's try it that way. Yeah, it's a much more elegant way of doing it. All right, so we're going to get rid of the map range here and get rid of the multiply here. And if we had this attribute just here, it should go in reverse. Okay, so it goes in reverse like this. What we're going to do is add in a RGB curve here. And usually the curve goes in this direction. We're going to reverse it here like this. Plug that in here. And now we get this thing here. And this allows us to like adjust this if we don't want it so kind of, linear. You can do that. And I'm going to multiply this times a number, and then because I still need my trunk width, what ended up happening is I think I've got rid of my trunk width value here. So add math, multiply. Let's see, is that what I did on the trunk one? I got that. Okay, trunk width ended up going, oh, it went into the curve radius there. Okay, 6 1/2 dozen the other. And do. So we want to take the trunk width. Put it there. And that way, yeah, now we're adjusting the width and we can create this thing. And we can make it a little bit more organic if we want to. Maybe if we want it, we bloat it out a little bit more. Okay, this is the, there we go. So there we go. All right, so now we've got is a trunk for the tree. We can change its detail. We can change the noisiness of it, how much it kind of goes all wiggy on us. We can change the length of it, and we can change how thick it is. for that tree trunk there. And we should have something that's pretty similar to that guy. Is there something that you can suggest changes so things flow more efficiently? So Jay from the Bay, efficiently as in like so that these nodes are arranged more efficiently, or how do you mean? Was doing that, I can show you a little bit of how you would texture this tree as well. That's using the material shading. When you go to shading and you click new, you will get nodes as well, but these are material nodes rather than geometry nodes. See what Jay says. Just overall, let's say you finished the tree, but the program thinks it would be better another way. Oh, yeah, there are different ways. I mean, it's just, depending upon how you want to do things. So I'll show you examples. I did the tree 2 different ways. Actually, it looks like I did it 3 different ways. Go back to geometry nodes here. So when I do a close-up of this tree here, what I ended up doing is I did all the branches off of the all the radius intersections of the tree. So if I switch over to wireframe mode here, there are these rings here in the tree, and I think there are like 9 cross sections here. It's either 9 or 13. I can't remember what resolution I did on this tree. Let's see, tree width resolution. I don't have that particular number. But these things are coming out. So I'm having a number of sometimes like 5 or 6 per one of these, right? So it ends up being like a lot of geometry in here. And so I did it another way where I created more rings, but I only did 1 per ring. And that was much faster and probably looked more organic. So that's this one here. So if we look at the trunk here, I have many more rings in this tree. So and an opportunity to put a branch at each one of them, right? Rather than putting multiple branches per ring, I put 1 branch per ring, but I could set that branch probability up or down. Let me go here. So that's setting up a high branch probability happening for just about every ring there. It's just that they're offset on the geometry. So this is probably a little bit more how trees really are. It created less geometry, and I don't know that it made it any worse, right? It actually might be better. So I think you thinking about the geometry and how you want this thing to come together could be how you might do it a little bit more efficiently, if that helps. So many different ways to skin a cat. I'm not sure if I did it any differently on this one here. No, that wasn't anything. It was just those 2 methods. So this is that one tree. And let me show you the other one. And here's the other one, side by side, right? If you ask me, even though the one on the left is kind of a fuller tree, it's more of a fake tree. I have all of these branches, at each level, whereas this one, it's more random. I think this is more how trees actually are. So And this is much less geometry than the other one, so more efficient. All right, and so the other work that you would do if I this is the nodes for my tree here, the one that was finished. And what I did is I added in this collection to create the branches. And the branches is just another set of tree trunks. So if I go here and I show the branches, oh wait a minute, this is all turned off. It's off. Okay, here we are. All right, so this is just the same exercise that we just did. Is I just created 3 of them and I put them in a thing called branches. And each one of these has, you know, the ways that you can adjust it. So I've got a branch height, I've got, a width of the branch. And so they're all just got different numbers for them. So this collection here, and you can create a collection by just going new collection, and then you drag any of the objects in the collection, and it's now that collection. And you can name or rename these collections at any time, and it won't break anything, which is really cool. But that is what I've used when I go over here to the finished tree. And I'm creating the branches here. It's just an offshoot with that in there. So let's go to the thing that we just did. That was cube 1. I'm going to hide the rest of these assets here. So that's this guy here. What I'd want to do is then, as this spline goes up and this curve goes up, I'm going to take this information and do a set of instances of branches on this. So if I say, instance on points, I'm going to take this geometry, I'm going to go to points here, and then I'm going to add in my branches, just drag it right there. I'm going to say those are the instances here. And then right there where we do the geometry out, I'm going to do a join because I want to put more than one thing. Join geometry. So that goes there, and then this goes here, right? So what we do is we have now all of these branches that are connected to there, and it's doing each of the 3 branches. I'm going to do separate children, pick instance. But what they're doing is they're all flowing up. So they're all coming off of this. So there's a rotation that needs to happen here. So if I add in, let me do I can do the rotation here. So I know that if I do things off of X, they should rotate or pivot off in that direction. So let me add in I think this is it. No, that's not it. It's the, Euler. I know it when I see it. Align Euler to vector. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna plug this into the rotation. What I want to do is I want to get these to line up to the normal, so the normal rotation is correct. You can add the normal information for the object by just typing in normal, and then I can plug that into the vector. And that should, let me do this first. That's right. I don't have these all lined up yet. I'm going to do that. And let me do rotation and into Z. And if I start doing this, then we get stuff going around. All right. So now we're starting to see these branches come off the tree. The rest of doing this is going to be the stuff that we've already done. As the branches get higher in the tree, we want the scale of these instances to get smaller. Right? So what we're going to do is do the same thing where we capture the attribute, this, and we're going to multiply it and then by the scale, and then these things are going to get smaller and smaller as they go up the tree, right? But all of this will then be configurable again, you know, even though that we have the branches on the tree, you know, I can say that the length of the tree, it's not going to affect that. The width of the tree, it's going to continue to adjust that. The detail, it's add less detail. All those numbers and all those things are going to work just as well. So this gets you started, you know, and eventually if you kind of build it all out, you adjust some of these angles to make it look a little bit more organic, etc. You should be able to get to a finished Christmas tree, kind of like this here. You should be able to get there. You know, adding the ornaments on here is exactly the same thing as adding the branches. You create an ornament object that becomes a collection. You toss that in there. You know, you connect it off of the captured attribute instance on points, and there you go. Now you've got ornaments and lights on there. But the only thing, and if somebody ever figures this out, tell me, is these things are scaling as they go up the tree because it's nested so many times. So if there's a way, you guys know how to do the instance on points where it's not capturing that information after so many layers, that would be good to know. That's the one thing I've got to figure out. So that's it, folks. That's how you do geometry nodes. Hopefully this was a little bit of insightful, a little bit of fun, and now you guys know how to use nodes to create a Christmas tree. Okay, so to specify the number of branches, there's actually a selection feature here. And you can put in a random number if you want, or a range in there, and then you can adjust that up or down. So if I look at my finished tree here, and I go to, there's this branch probability, and I can bring that down, and it's going to reduce the number of branches. So what it does is it looks at, okay, I'm going to put a branch at every point along here, but that selection thing is going to take some number of that or percentage of that. Let me see, just jump right to it so you can see it. Here it is. It's this value here that I've typed in, and this branch probability is the one that adjusts this number right there. And then that goes right into selection, right there. So, and that's how we end up with our Charlie Brown Christmas tree. what did I miss? All right, everybody. Hopefully this was fun. Next year we'll come back. We'll do more creator office hours. We tend to be switching between AI art generation and Blender. But I always give you guys the say. So when I have the ideas of what to do, I'll put it in the creator chat. And you guys let me know what it is that you want to do or what it is that you want to learn. And with Blender like this, what I'd like to do is prep a file like I did last time, so you can open it up, see what I did, come in and make adjustments yourself and start to learn as we go along. But hopefully that was fun. A little bit of Blender, bit of geometry nodes, and I would say watch some tutorials out there. There's some really good techniques. There's a really good one on lightning and cobwebs that I wanted to pick up and do. And so really cool way, like especially if you want to create cobwebs in a scene, a very simple way to do it. There's ones for creating grass, all sorts of different things. So find some good tutorials out on the web and have fun. Thanks, everybody.